Everyone, welcome to Gelcar. We do have a quorum. Uh, Senator Lang will be here late. He has a car problem. And so I'll seat Representative Hacken Phillips in for Representative Hatch, who will not be here. And congratulations on the Senate for going to outnumber us this meeting. All right. The minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have a motion?
Second.
Okay, any additions, corrections, or deletions? Okay, seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and the consent agenda. Anything to be removed from consent?
I think we might need to seat some. Oh,
No, she's a
reg-
full member.
No, she's a regular member.
No problem. Okay, is there a motion on the consent agenda? All right, moved by Senator Ward, seconded by Senator Ennis. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, takes care of consent. We have 6 postponements. Oh, a lot of people up on that one. Would Director Morrow, could you give us a list of the ones that are to be postponed?
Yes. They are final proposal 2022-232, MHP 300s from the Board of Medicine, FP 2023-27, physician assistants, Med 600, Board of Professional Engineers, final proposal 2023-116 on continued status. From the Mechanical Licensing Board, FP 2023-48 on continued status. And let's see, final proposal 2023-61 from the Real Estate Appraisers Board, continued status. And from the Mechanical Licensing Board, FP 2023-103, individual and business entity licensing.
Okay. Some of those will need waivers, but we expect to have all of those at our next meeting, correct?
Yes, we do. The
Is there a
waivers are for 2023-116, 2023-48, 2023-61, and 2023-103.
Okay.
I moved to postpone as requested.
Good. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that clears out a lot of the simple stuff. And so we start with the Board of Medicine. Excuse me, the Board of Education.
Yes. So the Board of Education, final proposal 2023-31 on the procedures for approval for professional educator preparation programs. This one did have a conditional approval request filed with our office, and it did address the majority of the comments. The only remaining substantive comments are, there is one on page 2 of the rule text. It's an unclear comment due to the wording of the sentence. And the comment did propose some language that would clarify the requirements in order to make that sentence clear. So if the board was willing to change that, that would take care of that comment. And the other one is just an informational note to the committee. This proposal got repealed quite a number of sections because there were redundant requirements in these 600s and the 500s. So a lot of the language was repealed, and the other proposal that is renumbering the 500s is actually just approved on the consent agenda 2023-22. So the citations that are in this proposal reflect that renumbering in proposal 2023-22.
Okay.
Good morning, Steve Appleby, Auburn, New Hampshire, Director at Department of Education. We would take the suggestion, or the State Board would take the suggestion made by OLS regarding the wording and file a conditional approval for conditional approval. I apologize, my rules person is not here today, so.
That's okay. Okay.
So what could happen is the committee could conditionally approve this based on the conditional approval that was filed, and then additionally with that change.
All right. Any questions?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, seconded by Senator Ennis. And discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And that was simple. All right. Then the Board of Engineers.
Okay, so 2023-44, ethical standards and license surrender, engineer 500s. I'm not seeing anybody from the OPLC here. A conditional approval has been filed. There is one unclear editorial on page 4 that really could be addressed at adoption. However, the main issue with the proposal is that the rules have been expired since January of 2022. And so the committee may have some questions about enforcement of ethical standards. There is a statute that does require engineers to be of good professional character, and that's RSA 310A13. So the board does have that statute to enforce, but without any rules in place, it's not clear what good professional character will mean and how they'll enforce that. But I'm not seeing anybody from the OPLC here.
Yeah. Is there anyone from the agency? I didn't see anybody either. Okay. We have a question on how they enforce the expired rules.
If I could, the other proposal, 2023-116, is continued status for engineers. So that one's been postponed. You could postpone this item as well and take them up together next time.
Do we, Senator Gray, you have a question?
No, to appoint him so he can vote.
Oh, okay. No. All right. Senator Gray is in for Senator Whitley, since he showed up. Okay. Does the committee have any position on this? No. All right. In that case, I move we postpone this one also and deal with it at the next meeting. And since that will be before our deadline anyway.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will find out what the engineers are doing.
Actually, you will need a waiver for that one. I'm sorry
We
to
will?
postpone it. The meeting is on September 21st, and the deadline's the 19th. Sorry.
All right, then yes, we will ask for, change the motion to include asking for a waiver for those 2 days.
I amend my second as well.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. And more ethical standards with the soil scientists.
So this proposal has the same issues as was just discussed. These rules have been expired since March 18th, 2019. There is a statute that does list some violations that may be considered as ethical standards, such as any person who gives false or forged evidence to a board in obtaining a certificate would be a violation. However, there's a number of other ethical standards that are not encompassed in that statute that are in the rules. And also there was a conditional approval request filed with this proposal, which addressed all the other issues. So that was the only remaining issue with this. But once again, it doesn't seem as there's anyone from OPLC here to answer any questions.
And I take it the next one from the real estate appraiser board also has the same issues?
That is correct.
Okay, we've,
Madam Chair,
yes,
if the committee wished, we could wait to take action until further in the meeting if they show up.
we'll definitely do that on both of them because I want to find out what they're doing with not, and with expired rules. All right, well, so we'll skip over the real estate appraiser board. And how about the professional geologists?
So the professional geologist, there was a conditional approval request filed. However, there is still some issues regarding the rule. Specifically, there's an unclear comment on page 1 of the rule text, the conditional approval rule text that is, oh, and I apologize, I'm going to back up a little bit. There were a number of comments on this one because we still did not have a form submitted for this particular proposal. However, a form was submitted, so a number of my comments on the conditional approval request have been fixed due to that having that form. So the only remaining comment that I have is that the rule itself does not have the title of the form in it. It simply cites to the PLC 308.06 rule, which is that universal application for license renewal form. However, that specific rule does not have the title in it either. So with regard to these geologist rules, the title should really be in there in order to make it clear which form is actually being discussed.
Or it sounds to me as though that could be a conditional approval.
That could be fixed with an amended conditional approval, yes.
Fine. So does someone wish to make a motion to conditionally approve these, provided they add in the title of the form? Okay. All right, moved by Senator Chanley, second by Senator Ward. Any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
And I apologize, this has nothing to do with the vote that the committee just took, but I just also want to make the committee aware that on this proposal and a number of other proposals that are going to be coming forward from the professional boards, we have been making informational notes to JailCar about the fee issue, just to keep that on your radar and to also track which boards are citing to those particular PLC rules.
Okay. We have plenty of information about those.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the Department of Environmental Services is here if you want to skip ahead to their rule. It's item M.
Good point, because I don't see anybody from agriculture. Unless there is? No, in that case, let's skip ahead to the Department of Environmental Services. The agriculture rule may take some discussion.
All right, so this is final proposal 2023-136, the alteration of terrain. There was a conditional approval request filed that did address a majority of our comments. The only remaining comments on this proposal is there is an unclear comment on page 18 of the conditional approval request text. There were a number of forms submitted with this particular rule, and one of them, the amendment request form, cites in the certification in just one section, RSA 641, with regard to the criminal penalties that may come from not signing falsely or misrepresenting any information in the application, instead of the specific citation RSA 641.3. And this is important because RSA 641.1 is specifically for penalties of perjury, which cannot be a criminal penalty unless it is statutorily it's statutorily authorized to be under the rules. So that comment was made on a couple other places on this proposal, but were fixed. So it seems this one was just an oversight. And in talking with the department, it seems they are willing to fix that, which can be done at adoption or in addition to the conditional approval request. The other unclear comment is on page 46 with regard to the appendix. We have been informed that the department has a new staff member working on administrative rules, and as the committee is probably aware, administrative rules is a very steep learning curve to get into. So we are working with the staff member in order to make the appendix more clear, as this was not the only proposal this issue had come up on. And we have been told by the department that the appendix will be fixed at the adoption stage for this particular proposal, and moving forward will be fixed. Finally, there was a note to jail car on page 12, once again regarding that RSA 641 issue. The reason this is a note is because these rules cite specifically to ENV WQ 150310, which is not in this proposal, but that rule also broadly cites RSA 641. So that is just something the committee needs to be aware of, and potentially the department needs to fix moving forward.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Courtney Lockwood here for the Department of Environmental Services. And I am the new staff member that she's referring to. So yes, we'll make those corrections.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? I am impressed that you managed to get the alteration of terrain rules through without significant public comment, so I'll congratulate you for that. All right, is there a motion? All right. Moved by Senator Ennis, second by Representative Schmidt. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you very much, and good luck. All right, so back to land evaluation.
Okay. I don't know if anybody from agriculture is here. So this proposal is adopting a single section in the Chapter 700 rules, which have been expired since 2009. Just to be clear, it is only one section in a chapter, the Chapter 700, that has been expired since 2009.
The rest of the chapter is
Is
currently
also
valid?
expired. Yes, the title of the chapter, well, it's on the acquisition of agricultural land development rights. And yes, that entire chapter has been expired since then. So this proposal is just adopting one section. And, you know, the section doesn't live in isolation. There are other requirements in the Chapter 700 rules that should apply when evaluating land. For example, the expired section just before this one, 705.01, is about the evaluation of applications. It's the entire, so, you know, the agency hasn't brought forward any other sections other than this one. So the committee may have some questions about that. Besides the expiration issue, the proposal cites a form, but the agency hasn't submitted any form to be reviewed. And just a reminder, there is a statutory change that does require the submission of forms with the final proposal, but that isn't effective yet. So, like I said, the form hasn't been submitted, and so the committee is being asked to approve a form that hasn't been reviewed at all. There's one other issue, and you'll see that on the top of the page, page 5 of the packet, and that's just around what's an unclear around what does potential and suitability mean. If they had a definition section, then they could probably define this, but they don't. So those are the main issues with it. There is also a note, just, you know, as an FYI to the committee, that Representative Peter Bixby has submitted an email stating that from his opinion that the rules do meet legislative intent.
Oh, excellent. I'm
yeah.
glad to hear that.
But beyond that, you know, it does have the issue of the entire chapter being expired and these being expired since 2009.
Yes, all right. Is there anyone from the department? Nope, okay. Any comments from the committee? Well, I'm glad that they meet the legislative intent, but I'm seriously worried about something that's been expired for 14 years. That's a very long time. And the rest of the chapter is still expired, and it doesn't seem to us that they've started work on it. Yeah, that's-
No, I've not seen any proposals come forward for it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would say that for, I think, 3 months, the department does have a person dedicated to rulemaking. I think she is part-time, and it's going to take some time because they have a higher percentage of rules that are expired than probably any other agency.
how nice.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think it's also concerning that the form they're asking us to approve has not been presented. And, I'm wondering, where does that put us, as a
Yeah,
committee?
well, we have a couple of options. We can ask for a waiver and postpone it. We can approve it sight unseen, which I'm not going to vote for.
Me neither.
Or we can oppose the rule on put in a preliminary objection on the grounds that we don't know what's been going on since 2009 and there's no forms. So would you care to make a motion? The last one. Okay, Senator Ward moves we preliminary object to the rule.
Second.
Second by Representative Schmidt. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an objection. And I would like to thank Representative Bixby for checking the new laws and making sure the rule is in accordance with it. Okay.
And I will convey your remarks to Representative Bixby, who is a fellow Dover rep,
Okay,
good
thank you.
friend of mine, so we
Thank you for
appreciate
doing
that.
that. All right, Broadband Matching Grant Initiative. This is
Okay, so they have filed a conditional approval request, and I don't have any comments on this one because the conditional approval request really did resolve all the comments that I had. However, the interim rules expired last month on July 4th, so there is that issue. And there's been some testimony submitted on the proposal, and so that's the reason why this isn't on consent. So I thought what I would do is kind of go through each of the comments that were submitted as testimony, if that's okay, and then we could have the agency address them. Looks like someone is here. So the first comment you'll see is on page 1 of the conditional approval request, and that is around the expiration of the rule. Down at the bottom of the page, there is a comment. Testimony was submitted that the definitions for underserved locations and unserved locations and overbuild could be a bit more detailed, and that there was some overlap between underserved and unserved definitions. I took a look at this alongside of the statute, and I thought that the definitions were, in line with the statute. Whether or not they could be a bit more clear, I do see there is a little bit of overlap between the two, but so that was one issue. The next one is on page 4 of the conditional approval request at the top of the page. And the testimony here was really around the scoring criteria. They thought that the scoring could be more detailed to address how the agency will determine whether or not the project will deploy faster service or otherwise meet the objectives of the statute. I think that that's probably going to be a policy decision, and as time goes on, the agency will probably have more to, that it could do more and amend the rules here to around the scoring issue. They'll probably have more detail to add later. The next one is on the very next page, on page 5. And here, this is on the challenge process. And this talks about that the challenging party shall provide detailed proof that the application is in violation of the statute. And the testimony really wanted, maybe a definition or to explain what this detailed proof would be. And to me, it seems like the challenger should really submit everything that they have to prove. So I don't know necessarily that outlining here everything would be really in the best interest of the challenger or the agency. So I didn't place a comment. Detailed proof could be defined. They could put an example here if that's something that you think they should do. But so that was that comment, and there's one more on the next page. This is the last one. It's on page 6. And here, this is about, well, it says failure to provide timely reporting to the agency will result in non-compliance of the contract. And testimony wanted something in the rule stating that there should be notice and opportunity for a cure. I believe that that's most likely going to be in the contract that the GNC approve. They could put it here in the rule. They may not need it, but they might. So those are the issues with the rule.
Comments, questions? Motions? I will say I called Representative Leishman, who worked on the legislation creating these grants, and was unable to actually speak to him. So we don't have any update on the legislative intent for this one.
I thought Michael was just about to say something.
Director Morrell, you had a comment?
Regarding the wish to have notice and an opportunity for a hearing, in other settings, that would be perfectly appropriate and would be required by law. But if this is done pursuant to a contract, it would be entirely dependent upon what the contract says.
Yes, I agree that that sort of detail is more appropriately covered in the contract. Any all right, do you have a motion, Senator, in this? Okay, Senator Ennis moves to approve. Is there a second? Second. Okay, second by Senator Ward. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much for showing up. All right, any other, I believe the only other business is an emergency rule that we can, we should be discussing, correct?
Yes, but we still do have some of the board's rules that the committee hasn't dealt with yet, either to postpone or to go ahead and take action
Haven't they been
on.
postponed?
Not all of them. I think, for example, 49 from natural scientists.
Right.
And 50. I believe we skipped 49 and 50. That's G and H.
I thought we postponed, yeah, they aren't here. There are issues. So yes, please, let's postpone them. 49 and 50.
We'll need a waiver for 50.
Okay. I move we postpone to our next meeting and ask for a waiver.
Second.
Any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and we will remind the OPLC to show up.
Madam Chair, there's also the objection response for 2023-89 on the agenda, but I just wanted to let the committee know we have not yet received that response. They did get a waiver to extend their deadline to August 31st, so they still have a little more time to submit that.
Okay, well, that's reasonable. If we haven't got it, we don't need to talk about it. So the emergency rule?
The emergency rule is from OPLC. It's for the Advisory Board of Respiratory Care Practitioners. On May 23rd, a regular rule went into effect regarding continuing education. It was doubling the hours for continuing education for respiratory care practitioners. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the agency had to have a public hearing because they had a lot of negative feedback from licensees. And in fact, they had a couple of dozen licensees show up at the meeting saying that this was going to be very difficult because they did not have notice of this change until it went into effect While there may have been legal notice, apparently a lot of licensees didn't realize it. Expiration of the licenses is at the end of this year, so they would only have 8 months to complete all the new doubled requirements. The emergency rules specified several reasons why this was going to be problematic for licensees. There's a desperate shortage of them right now, so it's very difficult for the practitioners to take time off to do the continuing ed, which is routinely during the daytime. There were a couple of other reasons, and OPLC said that this was not only a safety issue because they were going to have to take time off to do this. There was going to be a shortage. Also financial burden on the respiratory care practitioners themselves by doing the extra. They did indicate too that national associations were in favor of the lower limits, and the lower limits were pretty much standardized in other jurisdictions.
So the emergency rule backed off from their increased continuing education requirement, essentially?
Exactly, yes.
Well, it's nice to know that, I heard from a couple of respiratory therapists who were concerned that the CEU had suddenly doubled. So it's nice to know they were listening to the people involved. And I'm not sure where they got the idea that they needed a whole lot more continuing education.
I don't know. Technically, an emergency rule is not completely necessary because there is probably time for OPLC to go through regular rulemaking before the licenses expire at the end of the year. But that sort of leaves the practitioners in limbo. You know, if the rule doesn't go into effect, then suddenly they have to have 24 hours instead of 12 hours.
Yes.
Well, we could always petition. We could
Well.
petition to withdraw the emergency rule.
It sounds like the emergency rule is more sensible than the rule it's withdrawing, so I don't think we need to take any action,
Okay.
unless you do. Do you think they need 12 hours?
No, but I just think it's kind of a bizarre situation.
It is bizarre, and what worries me is that the rule change was not noticed by the licensees.
Certainly questionably noticed.
Yeah, well, if a bunch of them came back out and said, hey, we never heard about this, which apparently is what happened, I think we ought to do is request OPLC to check into its notification procedures, because they should have been notified.
Right.
Historically, 541A required where there was rules regarding licensees that there be personal notice of every single licensee. Of course, this became burdensome because sending out mail to, say, with the Board of Nursing, when you've got tens of thousands of licensees. Of course, that was before really email was available, and certainly they must have a list of licensees and they could use email at this point.
I would think so, and perhaps we should consider reinstating that requirement, because, I mean, this is clearly a failure to communicate, and it's something that if it weren't something it sounded like the board was stretching to impose on the licensees, it could have been something much more urgent.
They did use a legal mechanism of publishing in the register, but that doesn't always get to individuals affected.
Right, exactly. Okay, any other comments? All right, then, do we have any other business?
Just whether or not you want to eliminate the continued meeting.
Yes.
I would
Doesn't sound
note
like
that,
there's a need for it.
right, I would note that we've postponed about 8 or 9 rules today, and we've already received 12 final proposals for next month, and we have 2 weeks to go.
So do you think we should have the continued meeting, and just for the postponed rules?
We could do that. It would help eliminate a huge crush, I think, at the next meeting, but it's up to the committee.
Okay, how about, could you guys show up for another meeting to get through all the OPLC stuff,
Right.
I believe that's 2 weeks from today.
which is
The 30th?
30th, okay.
That's Friday.
The 31st.
I think it would be better since since we have questions on all of them and what they're doing on their expired rules.
It's Thursday, the 31st of this month.
Okay. That more or less agreeable?
Duly
Wow.
noted.
Duly noted. Well, perhaps we'll have Senator Lang.
Why?
Okay.
We have several
Yeah,
members.
I think we should plan on that one, just because we've postponed a significant block of specifically OPLC rules.
The, the alternative would be to have a continued meeting in September, depending how many final proposals we do have in September and how many the committee can get through.
I think that since we've got a nice block of them all from the same agency with mostly the same issues, we should just do it and get it over with, and
Yes.
hopefully all of the new proposals will be on consent. One never knows.
Okay, the committee does not have to take any action because the meeting is scheduled.
All right, in that case, we are adjourned, and we'll see you on the 31st if you can make it. So